Jim joins us, theconservativecaucus.org, theconservativecaucus.org. Jim, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. You looking forward to a little break?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to a break.
What are you
going to need
do?
it. It's tiring time right now.
It is.
Lots of news.
Are you a little exhausted? I think this last couple of weeks have been kind of emotionally draining, right?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. And, but you know, that happens from time to time, and good thing we've got a decisive leader in the White House to at least not let things frazzle apart. I'm scared to think what Kamala Harris would be doing right now.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah. And I've got Mark Mitchell on my broadcast tonight from Rasmussen. We're going to look at the right way, wrong way, right direction, wrong direction polling, and it's still holding up. It's still holding up to really high levels for President Trump.
Yeah, I was just, before getting on here, reviewing a lot of the headlines from today. And what I'm finding out and what I'm coming to the conclusion of is that this is going to continue to move in Donald Trump's way in positive polls. The people are with him on the immigration issue. There's nothing Democrats are doing that is going to overcome that. Of course, what just happened with the Iran situation, which is now over, and I guess he's announced he's going to meet with Iran next week. You know, everything is a win right now because of decisive action that Donald Trump takes. And the Democrats just don't have a way out of this that I can see just yet. And I think it just continues to accrue to his benefit.
Well, let's go to what's going all over the place today, and that is Pete Hegseth. I love this. Man, this is one of those you put on loop and replay over and over. Here we go.
Because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times so that American people understand? How about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35? Or what it's like to man a Patriot battery? Or how hard it is to refuel midair? Giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that because of the hatred of this press corps are undermined because your people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible. And folks in this room are privy to that information because of the proximity here in the Pentagon. It's an important responsibility. And time again, classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that? How about we talk about how special America is, that only we have these capabilities? I think it's too much to ask, unfortunately, for the fake news. So we're used to that. But we also have an opportunity to stand at the podium and read the truth of what's really happening. And the reality is you want to call it destroyed, you want to call it defeated, you want to call it obliterated, choose your word. This was an historically successful attack, and we should celebrate it as Americans. And it gives us a chance to have peace, chance to have a deal, and an opportunity to prevent a nuclear Iran, which is something President Trump talked about for 20 years.
For 20 years, he did, for 20 years. You know, some of that was written down, but a lot of that was just right out of his heart. You could see it and hear it.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right in everything that he's saying. You know, we don't know what the full battle damage assessment is on this. So there is some question about where the material, you know, there were something like, I don't know, some multiple kilograms of uranium material, and we don't know if it was moved or destroyed. And obviously, it's going to take longer to find that out. But what we do know that happened is that the systems inside that Fordow facility where they were doing most of the uranium enrichment, unless they got it all out of there, which is not likely, it's totally destroyed. Many other aspects of their production capability when it comes to their nuclear program are destroyed. That is a high-level success. And then hopefully it did destroy a lot of that uranium material, and we're going to find more out about that. But it was a successful thing. And what made it mostly successful is that Donald Trump utilized the strength of America to make sure that we go quickly to peace. That was his plan all along. I know that was my hope, that he was going to do that all along. I wasn't a big fan of dropping the bombs because there is some risk there. But I have to tell you, it's a decisive move. And there's only one man that I know of who could be president, who could handle this situation.
Well, speaking to that, that's exactly. Yeah. So you have this message going on at the Pentagon by Pete Hegseth that was excellent. And then you have this messaging going on with Caroline Levitt at the White House in the press room that was excellent. So their messaging is very good today. And she speaks to that issue about what other presidents have done versus what President Trump just did. Watch this.
The Iranian regime was weeks away from being able to produce a nuclear weapon that would threaten the entire world before President Trump took this decisive action on Saturday night to obliterate their nuclear capabilities. The contrast in leadership could not be more clear. Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal. President Trump sent a fleet of American warplanes to destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. The United States and the entire world are safer because of this president's decisiveness. Despite agenda-driven leaks by the fake news media aimed at undermining this incredible accomplishment achieved by President Trump and our brave fighter pilots, there is broad consensus emerging already that Iran's nuclear capabilities were indeed destroyed. The United States, Israel, the United Nations, and even Iran all agree they can no longer build a nuclear weapon. So why did the president immediately turn to obliterating after the Iranian nuclear threat? Securing peace. Within 48 hours of the devastating strike, President Trump and his team brokered a historic ceasefire between Israel and Iran and officially ended the 12-day war. The Middle East is now shifting away from chaos and bloodshed and moving toward the beginning stages of a new era of peace and stability that President Trump has long called on them to achieve. This was unthinkable at this time last week, and this is what peace through strength looks like.
There you go. This is what peace through strength looks like. And notice what the other presidents did. Barack Obama, Joe Biden sent pallets of cash.
Yeah. And by the way, George W. Bush is no better. I mean, he really made a lot of mistakes. I keep making the point that I believe that Donald Trump is the fulfillment of what was the Reagan Revolution. And there are a lot of people who go out there and think that Ronald Reagan was some sort of a neocon. He was a peacenik. I was just on a former radio program, radio station that I was on for 4 years in Denver, doing talking earlier, and just mentioning the fact that I was sitting in the very chair that host was in, interviewing Peter Schweitzer back in 2007, talking about his book, Reagan's War. What did Reagan do? He didn't want to go to war. He didn't want to put military lives on the line and decimate our treasury by expending treasure in stupid wars. He was out trying to take down the Soviet Union in a peaceful fashion. He undermined their economy. And, the CIA was helpful with him on that. He also, his diplomacy with people in Europe, even Margaret Thatcher was just a little bit skittish related to Russian energy. That's one of the things that Peter Schweitzer brought out in his book. But that was the way Ronald Reagan thought. Donald Trump thinks the same way. And I am so pleased that we have someone who understands that you want a military that is really tough and capable, and you never want to use it unless you absolutely have to, and only in the instance where the homeland is directly at threat. Donald Trump's got that attitude. He sticks with it. He stuck with it in this case, and it paid off.
And of course, the best part of this press conference today was Jennifer Griffin. I've been saying, in my opinion, for some time, I think Fox News is really just a mouthpiece, in my opinion, for the CIA. What do you think about that comment before I play this clip?
I didn't see precisely what he's referring to in the negative she said.
Oh, you haven't? Well, let me have you watch it. You haven't seen this clip? You haven't seen him?
I saw the press conference when he pointed her out, but I wasn't sure what he was referring to. I missed that.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right there. Yep. Me, sir. Just a quick question. There's public imagery available saying that highly enriched uranium was moved out of Fordo before the strikes. Is that accurate? Have you seen that? And Mr. Chairman, a question for you. Have you been pressured to change your assessment or give a more rosy intelligence assessment to us by any political factors, whether it's the president or the secretary? And if you were, would you do that?
Yeah, that one's easy. No, I have not, and no, I would not. My job as the chairman is to offer a range of options to the president and the National Command Authority to deliver the risks associated with each of those, and then take the orders of the National Command Authority and go execute them. I've never been pressured by the president or the secretary to do anything other than tell them exactly what I'm thinking, and that's exactly what I've done.
And the highly enriched uranium?
There's nothing that I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
That's not the question, though. It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance? Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president says. I'm familiar.
Report about the ventilation shafts on Saturday night, and in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that. So we're looking at all aspects of intelligence and making sure we have a sense of what was where.
So why not acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission? The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
So when I say something like our boys and bombers, see, this is the kind of thing the press does, right? Of course, the chairman mentioned a female bomber pilot. That's fantastic. She's fantastic. She's a hero. I want more female bomber pilots. I hope the men and women of our country sign up to do such brave and audacious things. But when you spin it as, because I say our boys and bombers as a common phrase, I'll keep saying things like that, whether they're men or women. Very proud of that female pilot, just like I'm very proud of those male pilots. And I don't care if it's a male or a female in that cockpit, and the American people don't care. But it's the obsession with race and gender in this department that's changed priorities. And we don't do that anymore. We don't play your little games. Yes,
so you
right
know
there.
For certain that the uranium was removed from the facility before the B-2 struck.
So I'm not aware of any intelligence that I've reviewed that says things were not where they were supposed to be, moved or otherwise.
Wow. Okay, so there you go. Jennifer Griffin. Again, my opinion is that Fox News basically just pumps out wherever the CIA, the military-industrial complex. I mean, this is how the American people and a lot of conservatives end up going along with things like the Patriot Act, that there's a moderate Islam versus there's just what we call Islam. Things like, I don't know, anyone that says that the COVID virus came from the Wuhan laboratory, that's conspiracy theory. Remember that? That was on the bottom of the screen, if I remember correctly, one day on Fox News while I was on radio on 74 stations. And I said, radio audience, right now, Fox News has on the bottom of the screen that it's conspiracy theory to say that that this may have come from the Wuhan lab. So much of what Fox tries to shoot down ends up being true, from well, just those are just a few examples right there. No wonder the American conservative, the patriots, have a hard time getting on the right page because they keep tuning into networks like Fox. But guess what? I think their numbers are dropping because I'll tell you something, ours have shot up big time in the last 2 weeks, Jim.
Yeah, I will say this, that they have got so many things wrong. They honestly called the 2020 election too early. There's so many things. Roger, as we've talked about before, Rupert Murdoch really does have it out for Donald Trump. He's out to undermine him. The Wall Street Journal, a once great paper, once well-run paper, awesome editorial page. They always had factual stories that went right to the point. Their stories were not intentionally biased. They went and tried to get the information and they reported on it. That's been thrown into the trash with the Wall Street Journal, which is really sad. But and Rupert Murdoch owns it. So, yeah, I mean, they have it out for Donald Trump. They actually don't like the Tea Party movement. They don't like the MAGA movement, which is made up mostly of people of that ilk. And it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, they should be or if not maybe but a bastion of truth. If you're going to claim to come from a conservative perspective, then what you're doing is trying to observe the truth. And the liberal left, radical leftists, they're not about truth. They're about pushing an agenda. When you go and push your own agenda, supposedly from the right, you're not doing any better than anyone else. And it's definitely bought in by neocons. And it's really crazy.
Mm. And the big, beautiful bill, where are we at with that? Are we going to get this done? Because if we don't, we're going to see a massive tax hike. And this is going to be very damaging to a lot of small business owners. And I am going to get into it tonight on Brighton House Live. But it looks like a lot of folks have parked their money on the sidelines. Houses aren't moving. We need interest rates to come down. We need Jerome Powell to move on. We need a new Fed chairman. I think President Trump is working on that. But we need interest rates to come down. We need housing market to move. Housing market is so dependent also on personal spending. Personal spending involves buying things like new drapes, new beds, new furniture for the backyard. That personal spending, we're seeing some numbers that show that stuff is dropping a little bit. People are parking their money on the sidelines. They don't know if we're going to have to pay more taxes, so they're parking money versus expanding their business, buying new equipment, or whatever. We've got a problem here. We're going to get into that tonight, but what are your thoughts? Because we've got to get this new big beautiful bill passed so that the business owners can know we're not going to see some massive tax hike, so they can start throwing money into the economy and expanding their businesses.
Well, the Senate's doing everything it can to kibosh the bill, to be candid with you. They've made some changes that are pretty absurd. And oh my gosh, the parliamentarian said we can't do this. By the way, let's just, as is my want, let's go to the Constitution, Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2. Each house may determine its rules and proceedings. But no, we're going to listen to the parliamentarian because they're the absolute authority. And it's just really, really crazy the way Washington works. So I just heard you've got all the people who want this massive increase in the SALT deduction, and the Senate did, in my opinion, rightly reduce that back down. But there are a myriad of other things that they've changed that could really mess things up. They're not going to get rid of all the Green New Deal stuff that came in during the Biden administration. That's a laydown. That's easy to do, and they can't even do that. They've also changed some of the Medicaid reforms that were in place. So I do hope it passes, because we do need those tax cuts. And as you mentioned about investment, we need the expensing, the 1-year expensing that businesses can get. It's critical to our future. Donald Trump is, by the way, not trying to so much rebuild a consumer economy, although that's really important. We need a business economy that can get back into manufacturing. And a consumer economy can quickly bump things up, but it can also pull back on you just as quickly. You have to lay the foundation in businesses being able to be free of regulation and have the ability to invest and expand. And that's what Donald Trump's focus is on. And that's why one of the reasons why the issue with Jerome Powell, he needs to pick someone fantastic who has a real free market way of thinking, who actually does not like the Federal Reserve System, but is willing to break the mold and do what needs to be done with the Fed while we're still under this piece of crap. That's what he needs to do. Jerome Powell's never going to do that. He's already put a statement out intimating maybe that they might reduce interest rates. But the stock market is doing great. Donald Trump has really put a lot more confidence into the system if we can just get the politicians in Washington, D.C., in Congress and the Federal Reserve off our backs. Stop spending money. And the last point I'll make on this, Javier Milei made massive cuts in government spending in Argentina, and he had some real economic numbers bad for about a year, and then suddenly he's at 5.8% growth, higher than China, well higher than what we're experiencing. If Congress could ever just get to the point of recognizing that, yes, the tax policy side of the bill is great, but cut the dang spending. That's what we need to do. And so I hope that they work it out. But if they don't pass it, and they're working hard to grab defeat out of the jaws of victory here, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
Let's take a look at this. My buddy Trevor Loudon has just put this out. He's like, listen up. This is the new Democrat mayoral candidate for New York City. He says, them. So what kind of mayor does New York City need right now? Question mark. He says, me. And then he puts down here, I guess comparing himself to this 21-year-old new mayor who is a communist. She'll be the youngest mayor of a city in the world. Here she leads a detachment of red volunteers. So let it be known you're getting an Islamist and a Marxist, which, by the way, a lot of people want to call out that he's a socialist and a communist, but not a lot of people either have the understanding or the guts to also say that he's an Islamist. So people that are just saying he's a Marxist, I'm glad they're doing that, but I want to know why you're not referring to him as an Islamist as well. Okay, it's either because you don't understand the threat of Islam, you're being politically correct, or you're that would be you're either don't know the threats of Islam, which means you don't understand, or you're being kind of politically correct, which means you don't really want to engage in pointing out he's an Islamist. But you can't just go around saying, he's a Marxist. No, he's a Marxist and an Islamist who's a massive hater of Israel, which means he also hates Christians, by the way. So if it's not convenient to point it out because certain people don't care about the Jews, well, maybe they ought to care about themselves. And I bet a lot of Americans consider themselves Christians, but I don't like the fact that people are calling him a communist or a Marxist, but won't say he's also an Islamist. But this is
he's a Marxist adherent to Islamofascism.
That's exactly right.
And now he was out saying today, we need to get rid of hate crimes in our community. And he was talking about hate crimes towards Jews. He's quickly shifting because he knows there's a large Jewish-oriented population in New York City that he's got to get votes from. But by the way, no friend.
He also is laying the foundation for hate crime laws, which he will not have his people enforcing when it comes to people going after the Jews, because hasn't he been there in the Intifada rallies and everything? Those hate crime laws won't be enforced, but you can bet your last bottom dollar he'll enforce the hate crime laws on anyone that speaks against him or against Islam. Not against the Jews, but against the Islamists. In my book in 2016, The Coming Religious Reich, I pointed out how Tony Blair was trying to put in hate crime laws, and he was using people that deny the Holocaust. And some rabbis that I quoted in my book in 2016 came out and said, we don't like Holocaust deniers. No, but we're not interested in laws, hate speech laws that are used against the people denying the Holocaust, because that's a double-edged sword that will come out and be used against us, Jews, when we speak truth about something else. And that's what he's doing, I think. Hey, we need the Jews' vote, so we'll say this, but then he's laying the foundation for hate crime laws that will never be enforced against those saying horrific things about Jews, but you better not say anything about the Islamist. So people beware. I warned about that in my book in 2016 with Tony Blair.
If you want to know what this guy's going to do, just look at what Keir Starmer's been doing over in the UK. He has exactly the same attitude, and you're going to jail if you speak against him. By the way, Tom Homan, what a hero, because this guy's threatening to arrest ICE agents and take them down. And Tom Homan said, good luck with that. we have the law, and he's determined on it. So I don't know. Hope maybe, it's kind of weird to say, but maybe Eric Adams really can pull this off because this guy's so radical. We'll have to see.
Wow. Yeah, look at this video. Watch this video here, folks.
Oftentimes, we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages. Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling. So violence is an artificial construction. And we have to be very clear that what is happening here with these district attorneys, that is violence. That is violence of the highest degree.
There you go. Well, there you go. So burglary is not violence.
The one of the key factors of the Islamist is that they will not comply with truth. They have no rational argument for truth. They will not hold to truth. They will lie to you to get their way, to get to some other means. And this guy epitomizes that in very many ways.
Mm-hmm. All right. What else are you seeing on your radar?
Well, he caught me off guard. Where's my thing here?
That's all right.
No,
look. I can go with this. Look at this. Here's Bill Gates. I guess he's panicking. Here we go.
Of course, this is a challenging time. All the progress we've made is at risk. Budgets are tight, and we all have to show our priorities when there's tough trade-offs to be made. There's no denying this is a global health crisis. The U.S. cuts and other funding cuts, aid in total has gone down by $30 billion this year alone. It reinforces the incredible values being shown by the people who are showing up here today and being incredibly generous. But with the cut in health resources, along with the financial situation a lot of these low-income countries are in, we are going to have a few years where things will go backwards. As we think about this, think of a mother who will bring a baby wheezing for breath to a health center, and because the vaccines aren't available, that baby will not survive. Think of a health worker trying to deal with a measles outbreak, who, because there's less resources for that primary healthcare system, our vaccines, that measles epidemic will continue. This is agonizing. I mean, we have to put ourselves in the position of the parents who lose these children, and how tough it must be for them to realize that the life could have been saved by a vaccine that costs just 30 cents.
How about the lives that could have been saved if we hadn't stuck them with a COVID bioweapon, when we have Nick Helsher on the other night showing, with the conservative numbers, more people died from the COVID bioweapon than died in World War I, World War II, and Vietnam combined. We've got all kinds of reports with OBGYN Dr. James Thorpe about the babies that died, the deformities. Really? Yeah. Of course, now we have, thankfully, RFK Jr. doing an awful lot to shut this down and pull money from Gavi. And I think this is what is at the crux of a lot of this, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what he's pointing to. And by the way, I don't take my advice from a guy who stole 2 operating systems. MS-DOS was stolen, and then they got Windows by stealing the code from Apple. Or some people say that didn't really happen. It did, and he became a billionaire from it. He lies all the time about this stuff. He is a Malthusian crackpot They don't call me don't call Robert F. Kennedy a crackpot over what he says about vaccines. You're a Malthusian crackpot who wants us to eat bugs. You can forget it, dude.
Yeah. Yep. And here we have brand new article tweet out tonight by our buddy Nick Helsher. At least 7 peer-reviewed studies suggest that vaccines cause autism. So what about the poor family whose child went from being a beautiful, bubbly, happy, alert, verbal child to the absolute opposite of that, Mr. Gates?
You know what? I mean, I in my lifetime, I've known 2 families who had autistic children, and they were good friends, and we helped them out as friends, and actually would fill in for them from time to time. In both cases, that child changed the moment they had vaccines. I don't know what the science is, but it's a real problem.
Well, there you go. 7 peer-reviewed studies. That's the science. TheConservativeCaucus.org. TheConservativeCaucus.org. Happy 4th of July. Enjoy your vacation. Folks, we'll talk to you tonight on Worldview Report, Brandon House Live. Thanks for watching. Take care. Tonight on the Worldview Report, the Trump administration launches a new vetting system for scientists coming into the country on research visas. Will it be too little, too late? The stunning victory by a Muslim socialist in New York City's Democrat primary has Jewish leaders pleading with Jews to flee the city. China has unveiled a new spying weapon. They're calling it mosquito drones. And President Trump goes after Spain for refusing to spend more on its own defense. And top executives from tech giants Meta, Palantir, and OpenAI are being sworn in to the U.S. Army Reserves, receiving an automatic rank of lieutenant colonel. We'll explain why. All these stories and more as the Worldview Report begins right now.
This is Worldview Report with host Brandon House. Whether it is news from the nation's capital or your state capital, from the classroom to the boardroom, from national security to national and local news that impacts you and your family. Worldview